Good morning. Welcome to the Thursday edition of your breakfast show, Leadership Television Inside Nigeria. My name is Winifred Ugbebo, and today is Thursday, 10th of July, 2025. Without wasting much time, we'll head over to the papers we have on our lineup for review this Thursday, including Nigeria's most influential leadership. We have also THISDAY newspaper, Nigerian Tribune, The Punch, Vanguard, and Blueprint newspaper. We'll flag up with leadership newspaper and see what it has on its menu. And of course, leadership is still talking politics and coalition. It says Akume, Al-Makura, Dariye, others in race for APC chair. North Central stakeholders jostle for seat. Dariye may continue till December. Ruling party to take decision at NEC. Talking about the ruling All Progressives Congress. Akume, Al-Makura, Dariye, others in race for APC chair. Of course, there has been agitations that the APC chair, which was vacated recently by Ganduje, the former chair, just so by North Central to take a shot at that position. North Central stakeholders just so for seat that Dariye may continue till December and ruling party to take decision at NEC. Leading story today on Leadership newspaper. And beneath that, we have picture of the book launch that took place yesterday by former and still spokesperson to former President Buhari, Muhammadu Buhari, Garba Shehu, on his book launch, according to the president. We had the chief presenter, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, the author of the book, Malam Garba Shehu, deputy chairman of the occasion, Undoka Baigbenan, publisher of THISDAY newspaper. We had Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, chairman of the occasion, General Yakubu Gowon, retired, representative of President Bola Tinubu and secretary to the government of the Federation, SGF, Senator George Akume, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, and 15th Emir of Kano, Ado Bayero. During the launch of the book, according to the president, lessons from a presidential spokesman experience in Abuja on Wednesday. The leading cover on today's Leadership newspaper. And beneath that, Union Bank can pursue global fleet debt, according to court. Union Bank can pursue global fleet debt, according to court. And in other reports, they said the bank is heading to appeal that judgment. $1.3 trillion naira fraud. Senate probes Cyber's orders. The story continues on page 7 of Leadership. Kenyamo inaugurates Ganduje, orders to fan board. Of course, the immediate past chairman of APC made it to Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria. That is FAN board. He's the chairman of the board of FAN. The inauguration took place yesterday. 8-member committee investigates attack on Emir Sanusi's palace. Story runs on page 7. Will consolidate Buhari's reforms. Tinubu, boss Mustafa, president contributed little to Buhari's victory. The story runs on page 4 of Leadership. Will consolidate Buhari's reforms, coming from Tinubu, because that conversation took place yesterday at the book launch of Garba Shehu, according to the president. Lessons from a presidential spokesman experience. We move towards the masthead of Leadership. NIN disruption exposes gaps in telecom infrastructure, experts. And on the business boss of Leadership, 3-month single entry visa will affect partnership, cooperation. Federal government says US, UAE, that is United Arab Emirates, imposes stringent conditions on Nigerians, bans transit visa. Maybe we'll take excerpts from that business story, which is generating controversy till now in the country when the news broke 2 days ago. The federal government has urged the United States to reconsider its revised visa reciprocity policy, which now limits Nigerian non-immigrant visas to single-entry 3-month validity. The call is contained in a statement issued by Kiemebi Ebienfa, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson. The government expressed concern over the U.S. decision amidst partnership, cooperation, and shared global responsibilities between both countries. The government's attention has been drawn to the recent decision by the U.S. to revise its visa reciprocity schedule for Nigerian citizens, limiting the validity of non-immigrants visas, including B1/B2, F and J categories to 3 months with a single entry. Government views this development with concern and keen interest, particularly given the long-standing cordial relations and strong people-to-people ties between our two countries. These are excerpts from the Business Boss story today on the cover of Leadership. 3-month single entry visa will affect partnership, cooperation, federal government tells US. From there, we'll move to the stories about the masthead of Leadership. Lamido, the former governor of Jigawa State, says 2027, I'll be in PDP work for coalition. 2027, I'll be in PDP work for coalition. Coming from the former Jigawa State Governor Sule Lamido. The last story on the cover of Leadership today, above the masthead, FCTA launches Operation Sweep Abuja to rid city of miscreants beggars. The story runs on page 15 of Leadership. FCTA launches Operation Sweep Abuja to rid city of miscreants beggars. And from that cover stories, we move to page 3, where we have our stand. Today's stand is on improving mental health of soldiers. Improving mental health of soldiers. The need for improved mental health for soldiers on the front line cannot be more urgent than now. This position is contingent upon the extraneous mental, psychological, and physical demands associated with addressing various security threats in the country. Recently, scores of videos of soldiers complaining about the conditions on the front lines have been making the rounds on the internet. While the issues surrounding the frequent outbursts of overstressed soldiers cannot be ascertained entirely, the military authorities should look into such complaints and find solutions to them. We'll take this stand. You know, this is a backdrop to today's stand. And at the beginning, you have the background to the story. And towards the end, the leadership paper or the paper concerned takes a stand. And it says, the periodic visits of service chiefs to the front lines are commendable. The impact of such visits on the mental health of soldiers cannot be quantified in monetary terms. They boost the morale of those on the front lines. This can be taken further by sending specialized video messages to soldiers and granting accelerated promotions for those deserving of such a promotion to demonstrate exceptional leadership and courage on the front lines. As a newspaper, we align with the soldiers' force concept and advocate for the necessary support from the country's political leadership to realize it. Today's stand in Leadership newspaper, improving mental health of soldiers. From the stand, we go to the back page where we have Thursday column called Being Blunt with Mwazu Elize. Mwazu Elize is the group managing director of Leadership newspaper group. And today's column is on Taraba's absentee deputy governor. Taraba's absentee deputy governor. We take a quote from that back page column. Like most Taraba citizens and other Nigerians, I pray that God grants Deputy Governor Akali a speedy recovery. Quote from today's Being Blunt with Mwazu Elize, Taraba's absentee deputy governor. Before we leave that back page, let's go to Ghana Must Go. Articles 8 says delegates will settle Atiku Obi Amechi's fight over ADC ticket. Fight in quote. Articles 8, the delegates will settle Atiku Obi Amechi's fight over ADC ticket. And of course, Ghana Must Go replied, dollars you mean? Well, at Articles 8, we have to clarify on that. It's on that note we conclude review of Leadership newspaper this Thursday. Don't forget to log into the website of Leadership for continuation of those headline stories. We move ahead to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is THISDAY. THISDAY says Boss Mustafa Buhari allowed institutions to work, prioritize structure over showmanship. Fallout of yesterday's book launch in Abuja, according to the president. Says ex-president's constant 12 million votes birthed his presidency in 2015. Tinubu, my predecessor, showed humility, restraint, maturity in exercise of presidential powers. And Obagbena, the publisher of THISDAY newspaper, who was the deputy chairman of the occasion, says 40 years ago, I was the last journalist to interview Buhari just before IBB school. These are kickers to the leading story on THISDAY, this Thursday. Boss Mustafa Buhari allowed institutions to work, prioritize structure over showmanship. We move ahead to the other stories gracing the cover of THISDAY, and just like a Leadership newspaper, we also have the picture of dignitaries that graced the book launch yesterday beneath the leading story. Beside, on top, just beneath the masthead of this day, visa reciprocity. Federal government urges U.S. to reconsider single entry decision. And above the masthead of this day, Lukman coalition will avoid past mistakes of Atiku Obi to defeat Tinubu in 2027. Lukman coalition will avoid past mistakes of Atiku Obi to defeat Tinubu in 2027. Writers today to that say, discloses whoever emerges presidential candidate will get massive support. Coalition won't stand on anybody's mandate. Tinubu planning clamp down on opposition leaders. Abdullahi raises the alarm. Coalition dead on arrival, declares ACF spokesman. ACF is the Arewa Consultative Forum. Spokesman says coalition dead on arrival. It's on that note we conclude review of front headline stories on this day newspaper. This Thursday, July 10, 2025. We move ahead to the other papers we have on our lineup, and that is the Punch. Talking about the diplomatic tensions is what the Punch is leading with. It says federal government pushes back as US UAE tightened visa rules. The story is on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Diplomatic tensions. Federal government pushes back as US UAE tightened visa rules. Ministry begins high-stakes negotiation as officials fought US over reciprocity claim. U.S. meeting, African leaders seek Trump's support to develop resources. We have the pictures of African leaders in meeting with Donald Trump recently, yesterday. U.S. meeting, African leaders seek Trump's support to develop resources. That's the story for that photo on the cover of the Punch. Beneath that, IMF pledges support for FROS on tax reforms. That is Federal Inland Revenue Service. IMF pledges support on tax reforms. Local government poll, police restrict movement in Lagos, deploy squads. Tinubu government seeking excuse to clamp down on coalition coming from ADC. And that also sums up the review of front headline stories on the Punch this Thursday. For more, log into the website of the Punch newspaper. We move ahead to the same, another paper that has similar cover story, main cover story on the diplomatic role, and that is The Guardian. The Guardian says 2 years later, international travel restrictions spark fresh row over absence of ambassadors. Of course, The Guardian is blaming the diplomatic role on the absence of ambassadors in these countries. 2 years later, international travel restrictions spark fresh row over absence of ambassadors. Story runs on page 6 of The Guardian. We have the picture of President Tinubu with the UAE, that is Dubai, Vice President of UAE, and the President of Dubai. And we also have Donald Trump in that story, illustrating the row between Nigeria, US, and UAE. We move to the other stories gracing the cover of The Guardian. Mutual funds rise by 105% to 5.9 trillion naira in first half on higher demand yields. Japa, Canada raises minimum proof of funds to 17 million naira per immigrant. Wow. In other words, for you to Japa, you have to have 17 million naira in your account balance. Canada raises minimum proof of funds to 17 million naira per immigrant. Niger attack claims 13 as 20 bandits die in Kwara. Again, 20 gunmen raid Aguata local council key 4. Delegates will decide who gets ADC's presidential ticket, says Atiku spokesperson. Same leading story in the previous papers before it. We move towards the masthead of The Guardian. EFCC decries mind-boggling fraud at NNPCL. Once unexplained wealth criminalized. EFCC decries mind-boggling fraud at NNPCL. Once unexplained wealth criminalized. 2027, don't underrate Tinubu, Ribadu wants opposition. UAE bans transit visas, imposes stricter entry rules for Nigerians. That story continues on page 5 of The Guardian newspaper, and that also concludes your review of The Guardian this Thursday. For more, log into the website of The Guardian. We move ahead to the next paper, and incidentally the last paper we have on our lineup, and that is Nigerian Tribune. Nigerian Tribune's leading story today is still on the fallout of the book launch yesterday. And there's SGF Mustafa says Buhari's popularity won 12.5 million votes for APC in 2015. Of course, he's debunking insinuations that President Bola Tinubu actually made former President Buhari the president. Says ACN, CPC, other major parties brought 3 million votes. Buhari administration stood on pillars of integrity, coming from Tinubu, his representative at that book launch. Buhari's popularity won 12.5 million votes for APC in 2015, as SGF Mustafa says ACN, CPC, other major parties brought 3 million votes. Buhari administration stood on pillars of integrity, Tinubu. We also have the picture of the book launch beneath that leading story on the cover of Nigerian Tribune. UAE imposes fresh visa conditions on Nigerians, bans transit visa. 2027, ADC raises the alarm, alleges plot to clamp down on opposition leaders. SAPC National Chairman Ganduje appointed FAN Board Chairman. I see it was also in other reports that we read earlier. SAPC National Chairman Ganduje appointed Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria Board Chairman, that is FAN. NUPROC says Nigeria's oil recount hits 46. Oil government procures 2 aircraft to improve security. ICPC recovers 21 billion naira from salary fraud in one investigation. Leading story on today's Nigerian Tribune. False revenue declared by NNPCL. In another report, they said EFCC raises the alarm over bogus fraud in NNPCL. ICPC recovers 21 billion naira from salary fraud in one investigation. Fayemi Oyembaji won't leave our party for ADC, coming from APC. We move ahead above the masthead of Nigerian Tribune. Ponzi scheme, Senate fought weak regulatory rules by CBN SEC orders. Probes loss of 1.3 trillion naira in cyber crash. Ponzi scheme, Senate fought weak regulatory rules by CBN SEC orders. Probes loss of 1.3 trillion naira in cyber crash. Court slams 1 million euro damages against Union Bank over breach negligence. Awards 50 million naira damages in favor of Nikon Investment Limited, while Union Bank heads to appeal court. These are leading stories today on Nigerian Tribune. Don't forget to log into the website of Nigerian Tribune for continuation of these headline stories. We have www.tribuneonlineng.com. So it's on that note we conclude review of some of the papers we have on our lineup today. Don't forget to log into the website of Leadership for continuation of these stories. My name is Winifred Ugbebo. Don't forget to join us tomorrow for another fresh edition of the program Inside Nigeria. Meanwhile, don't also forget to log in on this station, this frequency, for news on the hour. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast.